Great. So just before we start, a little bit of background to Volley2s. Gillian Harrison, who most of you will know as just strategic manager for Volleyball England, or Volleyball for Life at Volleyball England, and Bertrand and myself have pulled together information and ideas with the helps of lots of people. Many of you are listening in now. And also we've been scoping other countries, Europe and even beyond, to get ideas of what they're doing for young people in introducing them to volleyball. And as a result of that, we've pulled together this Volley2s guide for teaching and coaching. It's aimed at, obviously, children age 7 to 11, but it's very much stage, not age. And the guide itself is to help club coaches working with children of primary age, teachers of primary age children, and really anyone else who wants to help with the coaching, whether it's parents, young leaders, community groups. So hopefully the guide is self-explanatory and will help you along with the introduction of volleyball to young people. We're formally launching Volley2s this Thursday at a school in Birmingham alongside the Get Set Travel to Tokyo event. And as you're the people that have helped us get this up and running, and we're keen on the survey that you want to introduce volleyball, we wanted to give you a bit of a glimpse before anybody else gets to see this. So hence this evening, and thanks for coming along. The presentation itself is a number of slides, as Natasha says. If we can go through that, if there's any questions along the way that requires clarity, just pop those into the chat box and we'll try and pick them up as we go along. If there's anything of a more general nature, we'll perhaps be able to discuss that at the end of the presentation. Right, this first slide about why Volley2s. It must have been nearly 3 years ago. A group of about 40 of us met at Loughborough on a couple of occasions, and we decided we needed a focus for children and young people at the lower end, the primary age, in terms of trying to give children an opportunity to play competition early on in their volleyball careers. And also we needed to develop tools for coaches and teachers to be able to deliver to that age child. So the first thing we need to look at here, and I think a lot of the people who want to work with junior children are perhaps a little bit awestruck and don't quite know how to make a start. But there's three basic things here, and that is volleyball is quite a simple game. Get the ball over the net onto your opponent's side and keep it off the floor on yours. That's the basis of it. So let's not try and complicate things too much. And the next thing is, why do children have to wait till all their skills are in place before they can play games? So that was the idea, that they can be playing virtually straight away and be in a game situation, obviously modified rules, but they can be playing a game to start with. And then the last thing, to make it look like real volleyball, does take time, and lots of different opportunities to be able to play and learn as they go along, till they eventually get to what we as adults would think as proper volleyball. So it is a long process, and we just got to appreciate that there's steps along the way, and hopefully this guide will be able to do that for us. So if we're on to the next one, Bertrand. So the guide itself, what does it show us? It shows us how to play Volley2s, the rules and organisations for each stage, which I'll talk about in a moment. There's how to play. So there's the first one is more a pictorial way of seeing things. The second one is an explanation. Ways to plan sessions. The fact that Volley2s is inclusive and differentiated, so it does that quite naturally, but it's also meant to be for children of all abilities and disabilities, as well as being able to use for and adapted towards sitting volleyball, as well as indoor traditional game. There's little tips around managing sessions, different size numbers, how do you cope with those? There's development activities that support each stage, and technical cards that show the key points of each skill. And then finally, there's a festival organisers guide on how to run a simple festival. So I'm going to talk through all of those as we go along in the next few slides, just to try and clarify what's in the guide itself. So next one. So the thinking behind Volley2s is that children learn best through playing the game. So by modifying and adapting games to match the needs of all children, the following will be developed. So it's not about standing in pairs and learning how to volley to each other, then how to dig, then how to serve. Now we'll play a game. It's just playing the game and learning through the game and understanding not just the skill bit, but also the strategies and tactics that go with that. It's around developing teamwork, motor skills, and the problem solving, which is really important, about where do you stand on court for the best effect? How do you play the ball to win the point more effectively? And then the encouragement of fair play and sporting behaviour, again, is a real key point. And I think it's one of the big things about volleyball, that we do really treasure fair play and sporting behaviour and celebrate and encourage that. So now that's something that's carried through right the way through each of the sessions that we're going to see. So Volley2s, what is it? It's an adapted 2v2 version of volleyball, which has been developed by Volleyball England. And as I said earlier, it's stage, not age, but it best fits age 7 to 11. Why is it 2v2? Very simply is that gives you a team game, and the people playing get the maximum amount of touches on the ball. I know that we looked at other versions across Europe and the world, which looked at 3 and 4. That's fine, but you can't play a rally, or you can play a rally with 3 and 4 aside and not actually get a touch of the ball. So this ensures that there's lots and lots of contact within the game itself. And the next. So I've put so far that children up to the age of 7 have been developing individual fundamental skills. As we said, they're balancing, controlling different balls of various shapes and sizes, catching, throwing. So they've had a very individual fundamentals background, or should have had that, or hopefully will have had that. And Volley2s introduces children to working together with a partner. So straight away we're introducing the idea of team, but again, it's not a full team, it's just working with a partner as such. And again, it started by just using basic throwing and catching skills. So that's the start, but that's the base that we're starting from at those age children. But it's fair to say that if you're working with older children, not necessarily 7, but I've seen even adults that we can be using this, because they're at that basic level. So again, as the emphasis that it's the stage, not age. And there it is again, simple. Get the ball over the net so it lands in your opponent's court. So how does it work? And this is part of the first bit of differentiation. There are 4 stages: red, amber, green, and gold. The first game is red, so this is a sort of competition base. So the first stage is red, easy catch and throw. And we'll see in a moment that it goes through amber to green to gold, and gold is really your traditional volleyball shots and with a dig, set spike. So it is, if you like, the fully developed version, but still 2v2. Each stage introduces new movements and volleyball skills. There's tactical and problem solving along the way, and also we introduce different social skills or potential social skills along the way, depending on what the stage is. And this basically means that at each different stage, there are now going to be a set of rules that the game can be played without the coaches having to interfere and complain that wasn't a proper volley, or shouldn't have done that, because each of the rules is set out. So this is how the guide works. We show you on these gameplay cards, and the 4 of them there. I know they're only small in detail, but you'll see them in your packs on page 11 and 12. That actually gives you what the game looks like from the serve to first contact, second and third contact. So you can see all of those different stages along the way. The red stage is very much a catch and throw. Moves on to amber, and we introduce there a self-feed volley. So again, it's still a catch and throw from the first, from the serve and from the first contact. Onto green, we introduce the dig, but maintain the self-feed volley. So if the dig goes a little bit all over the place, which it will do at that particular age and stage, we've then got the safety of being able to catch self-feed volley and play the rally on from there. And then the gold gives us the full amount. You'll also notice with the serve, red looks at an underarm throw as a serve, and then it gradually introduces, I've gone back a bit, Bertrand, gradually.
Sorry, I just
Where are you?
scroll.
The second stage serve looks at underarm serve anywhere on the court, and then gradually we move back, so we're playing with the serve in the correct place behind the baseline for gold. But the cards themselves there give you a pictorial vision of what each of the stages looks like, which can be used for you as the coach, or even be handed to the children to have a look at and see if they can understand how it works. Now we can move on. Also, we have rules and organisation. So alongside the visual side, there are rules to go along with each of those, which gives us court sizes. And again, those are sort of adapted so that they fit within a badminton court size setup. So it's easy for schools and clubs, because badminton courts are usually the markings that we find on the floor. Net heights, and we give some net heights, but we talk about just above stretch height for your players, so that again it encourages them to play the ball up and over the net, but there's no sort of set in stone. Really, it's because then schools particularly are not too fussed if the net's a little bit high, a little bit low. They can still play. It isn't a barrier to them playing. Indications about how long matches are, and again, they're very short and change quickly, whether it's on points or minutes. It's just a quick games. Suggested ages for each of the different stages, going from 7 right up to 11. There's some general rules on each of the cards, and the general rules are the same across all 4 stages, because it talks about how many contacts you're allowed, how do you win points, such as get the ball onto the floor. It talks about switching, because one of the things that we've got in each of these stages is that as soon as the ball goes over the net, the players switch with each other, switch places. This is to make the game moving, rather than kids being static in one place. They then have to play and move onto the next position. And then there's advice about serving from the different positions and different types of serve. And then the specific rules for each stage talk about contact for player 1. Serve, first of all, how do you serve, whether it's where you serve from and how do you serve, whether it's a throw or a serve. Contact 1, whether it's a catch or moves onto a dig. Contact 2, whether that's a catch and throw, or whether it's a volley or a self-feed volley. And then contact 3, how do you play the ball over, whether that's a throw at red or up to a hit, a tip, or a volley at gold. So those cards, along with the gameplay cards, give you an idea of how the game is actually played. And what we're hoping from here is that now you can set up your own little competition festival, and you can say, right, we're playing Volley2s red. That's the competition. Everybody knows what the rules are. It doesn't stop players if they can dig the ball. Well, you know, okay, really you should be playing in the green competition, but it means that, okay, you've done that, but other people are allowed to catch and throw, because that's the stage that we're at. So hopefully it'll encourage more children at an earlier age to play their first round of competitions as such. Next one, please. For each stage, being as it's progressive, there's clear outcomes. And I'm not going to read all of them, but we can see that starting with the red, the outcomes are looking really about moving, being ready and moving well, and also playing the ball in a rainbow pass. So it's about playing the ball high to your partner when you're actually creating your attacks. So it's about rainbow passing and moving. The amber one is more of a focus on being able to self-volley and then being able to volley the ball over. So we're moving on to the volley. The green is around the dig, although it does mention little bits about spike, but the real emphasis there about playing the dig pass and how that fits in. And then the gold moves across onto trying to then link the dig and the volley, and then putting in the start of blocking and controlling the space in different formations. For 2v2, it's 2 back or 1 up, 1 back. So for each one, there are set outcomes that we like to look at as we go through all the different stages. Next one, thanks. Along with each stage, there are 15 development activities, and these are on 15 different cards. So when you look at what your outcome is, if it is around, in this case, we're looking at the dig as being the main thing, there are 15 cards that will help develop whatever it is at that particular stage. And on the card itself, you can see this is number 2, called In a Bag, for the green. There's the activity outcome. I know it isn't clear on the slide, but it will be on one of on your guide. So got the outcome. You'll need, what technical cards do you need for each of the points? So obviously we're going to need one about digging here. What equipment is needed? How do you set it up? In other words, player 1 stands one side of the net, player 2 stands the other side of the net, that type of setup. How do you play the game? And that will say player 1 sends the ball to player 2. And then there are some key questions there about asking players, and this is one of the big things. Rather than telling children how this is going to work, it's asking them, really, why did that not work? How do you make it better? You know, where were your feet when you played it? So there's a lot of questions that we can ask the players. So it's helping them understand rather than telling them. It's about them understanding. And then there's variations. There's harder and easier solutions to each of the practices to actually challenge each of the players at their own particular level. And then there's a few safety points around how you set things up or make sure you don't run into the wall, etc. So there are 15 for each, for red, green, red, amber, green, and gold. At the start of each of the sections and activities, there's a development overview. And this, what this does is confirm the outcome. So that's the top box. So in each of them, I think in gold, there are 3 outcomes we're looking at, and the others, there's 4. So that's the outcomes at the top. It advises you on what warm-ups to use from the warm-up cards. It matches, and on those cards, it matches the outcomes to the activity. So if you choose card number 3, it will tell you what the activity is and what outcome that is, whether it's to help you to move smoothly or whether it's to develop the dig pass, whatever it is, it matches the 2 there. There is suggested cooldowns, again, from the pack itself, and then there's outlines of social and the volleyball behaviors on that. And for each of those volleyball behaviors, in red, it's really players looking at themselves and thinking about how they respond. The amber one moves on to working more about how they relate to their partner and people around them. The third one is more about relating to the opposition in terms of their social behaviour towards them, if they do good points or not so good. And also the gold one leads on to more of a general one about general behaviour around not just themselves, the opposition, but the officials, etc. So it's building up on the social side of things as well. And the next one, the technical cards, of 11 of these, and that's a little glimpse there. It just gives you some key points for each of the 11 skills, whether it's ready to move, whether it's serving, whether it's a self-feed volley, base position. So there's all 11, and these are matched to the different stages. So when it comes to the spike, for example, we wouldn't use that in the red, but it doesn't mention that. It just mentions the cards when we need them against the development activities and the overview itself. Next, there we go. Okay. There's also a lesson template there, and the page before that, on page 15, gives you an example of how to fill it in. We said that this is game-based. You don't have to stick rigidly to this, but I think it's quite good for if you're introducing this to teachers who perhaps haven't got that much experience of volleyball, or perhaps anybody who is not used to planning sessions. It's very much about game-based. So we look at a warm-up, followed by the game you're playing, whether it's red, green, amber, gold. Then a development activity from the 15 cards, whatever you're hoping to develop there, then back into the game, then a cool down. Now that's just an example of how you could use that. It could be if you have a longer session, you might flip from game to practice on more occasions than just the two that were mentioned there. That's how the plan itself works. The next one, please. Right, I think that's gone through most of the things we got there, but there are 8 steps that we can follow now. So that if you're introducing this to someone, the first thing to do is decide what stage that your group will be working at. So I suggest if they haven't played volleyball before, we start with Volley2s red. So that's the first thing to decide, is what game you're looking at. Step number 2 is, we got that, Bertrand?
Yeah, is it not on?
No.
Oh, it's on my screen.
Oh, there we go. Well, there we go. It's on now. Okay. Yeah. The next thing is to identify the outcomes of the session. So we can see from the outcome card there are the 4 at the top, which looks like moving smoothly, rainbow, passing, etc. So for my session here, my focus may be just on moving smoothly in different directions. So that will be the next thing that I decide what my outcome. Now, the way that we can look at this is that as experienced volleyball players, you may be looking at your group and thinking, actually, out of those 4 outcomes there, the one that I need to pick on is, and then you pick on one of those. If you're perhaps new to the game, as there are 4 outcomes, it could be that you spend week 1 and 2 on the first one, and then onto the second and third. So you just go through in that sequence. But as I say, the more experienced you are, the more you will see what the outcome needs to be. But the outcome is something that's really needed to start with. And the next one. Next is to then have a look at the warm-up activities. And again, those are on the overview card. Look through those. Any of those will help you in this stage. They're on pages, I think it's whatever page I said there. Oh yeah, page 87 gives you the warm-ups. Now, there are a lot of warm-ups, and those are just the suggested ones, but there's no reason why you can't just select any of the warm-ups dependent on how you feel your group is going, or how confident you are at delivering that. Those are just ones that we think match best for the red stage. But as volleyball is all about moving, communicating, catching and throwing, moving with the ball, that most of them will develop and can be used anyway. But those are the suggested ones. So I suggest, if you're setting this up, pick out one of those as your warm-up. And step 4. From here, once we've worked out what the outcome is, let's select a development activity. And again, here it's 1v1 different catch. And our main aim for the session was about moving smoothly. So that one fits in nicely. So we can select that particular card off the overview. Step 5. Once we've got the activity card, we then read and see what technical cards we need, and there are the 2 that we need: ready for action and moving smoothly. That's for us to have a look at to get the key points that we're able to put over to the children, but they can also be used by handing them to the children and saying, there you go, have a look at that, work out what you're supposed to be doing, check that you're doing all that. So again, it's that questioning and checking that you can use the cards, and they understand what's fully happening. Step 5.
Step 6.
Have we done 5? That was 5. Yeah. Step 6. Again, at the end of the session, we've got the cool downs, which are on page 88 and 89. And again, there's some suggested ones there. But again, cool downs can be taken from any of those. But those are the ones that we actually think would be appropriate for the red section on this particular one. And then step 7, see if I can get it right this time. The volleyball behaviors, again, this fits in, and we look down the bottom of the technical overview card, showing you are ready to play, and this fits in well if we've got the theme of being ready to play. So again, it's it's emphasizing the volleyball behaviors, always playing to the rules. And again, within a school situation, maybe even a club situation, it could well be that the theme for this week across the class in all the different lessons they're doing is about understanding rules and why we have rules, and therefore take that into your PE lesson, which is volleyball, and then you can re-emphasize those. So again, the whole of this behaviors, it can sort of match to what you're actually looking at. Just to say that the last one for each of them is about congratulating your opponents at the end of each game. We had to change it from shaking hands. It is now congratulating your opponents. So hopefully that's COVID proof as well as everything else. And on to step 8. And the last little bit is about check the equipment you'll need for the development activities. So there we go on the development card. It tells you need a 1 ball for 2 players and a net, basically, and then you've got all the equipment that you need for that particular activity. So you're now ready to go with your lesson or your session plan. With the game, we know it's red, so we've got the card that tells us the rules. It's got the gameplay that gives us a visual of what it's like, and we've got the activity card, the different catch. Equipment's ready. Everything should be ready to go from there. So I put a slide here. Now you're ready to start, but before you do, just consider a few things, and they are, I think it might be a different approach to perhaps a lot of people about letting the children enjoy learning by playing the game. So I think we have to have in mind that the basics, that when we're playing any of these formats, the red, amber, green, gold, a team has 3 touches to get the ball over the net, and we're really keen on emphasizing the 3 touches. It's about playing the ball high to give your team time to play it over. It's about moving. It's about setting attacks, attacking near the net, because the closer you are, the more effective it is, and playing the ball low over the net and into spaces. So those are the sort of key ones that we need to think about, and just making it a little bit simple to understand that it's not that difficult. Just those key concepts are quite useful to have. Just going through a few, clarifying a few things. The gameplay cards, it says, will naturally lead players towards the next stage. So, for example, on receiving the serve, we want the players to actually pass the ball underhand, so that it's not thrown any old chest pass way. It's underhand, so that we've then got the idea of using it to develop the dig action later on. And then the second and third contacts can be underhand or overhand. But again, if you use the overhand, particularly to play it over the net, that's starting to develop the volley action. So everything is carefully thought out, so that it will hopefully naturally lead the players to the next stage without them realizing they're doing it as such. The technical cards, all of them are linked to the fundamentals framework of the ready to play, right time, right place, contact and finish and link, which those who are familiar with the level 1s, 2s and 3s, a sort of cornerstone of how we learn. And this really is, I think, quite fundamental here, because as we're looking at the group and working out why things aren't quite right, we can then say, well, it must be one of those 4 particular areas. Is it because they're not actually ready and therefore they can't get to the ball because they're not ready to start with? Is it because they're slow at getting there, they need to do that? Is it the actual contact that's causing the problem? Because that's usually what we focus on. And why aren't they ready for the next phase? Is it because they haven't finished the action and they're linked to the next thing? So that's really quite key. And on each of the technical cards, the key points are based around each of those 4. So we can start to pull the key points and the fundamentals framework together. And I think that's really quite important to look at.
Sorry, Nick, I will just add,
Yeah.
I think as well there, the outcomes of each level are also linked to this. So for example, for the red, we have moving smoothly, we have different things like that is fitting into the way to move, etc., to be at the right time, at the right place, or to be ready, the way to catch the ball, etc. So almost as depending on your experience as a teacher or as a coach, you can think, okay, I need them to have a better contact with the ball, so you can choose this outcome for your session, and therefore the activity is linked to it.
Yeah. That's really important. I think that's really quite key, and it's something that the more experienced of us need to be really delving into on that one. Everyone can succeed. The Volley2s, we've deliberately made it adaptable for all abilities and disabilities. There is a section on STEP, which I'm sure many of us have heard, which is basically saying that for each game, each activity, if we change the space, we can make it easier. So do we make the court bigger? Do we make it smaller? Is it easier if we stand further apart or we stand closer to each other? Do we need the net a little bit higher or a little bit lower? Do we need the pass to be higher, lower? So it's talking about space. The task, we can alter slightly the outcomes of the task. The equipment, do we need to use perhaps a lighter ball, a bigger ball, a balloon for that particular group to make it successful for them? And then in terms of people, do we perhaps introduce an extra person into the practice itself, or is it just an individual, or do we make it more complicated or more challenging with an extra person? So all of those things are really, really important, that we want children to succeed. So you as coaches thinking about the STEP process, but also so that the children start to understand that, and us as coaches, instead of saying stand a bit closer because that'll make it easier, it's more about how you're going to make it, how you're going to succeed a bit more, how you're going to make it a bit easier for yourself on this occasion. Let them come out with the answer that's probably better if they stand closer to each other or further apart, or whatever it is. So it's that guiding principle. STEP is also abilities, disabilities. This game, there's no reason why it can't be played on the floor. So sitting volleyball is fine. There is absolutely no reason why someone in a wheelchair couldn't be playing alongside an able-bodied person. Again, it's then adapting the court, making it easy, making the pass. What pass are we working at? Are we working at red? Are we working at green? So it's about adapting so that everybody can be involved, but everybody can be making progress and everyone enjoying the challenge of whatever section and game that they're in. Next one, please.
Yeah.
So do you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, because you mentioned that a bit earlier, but as well, it's part of this that eventually you can mix the different level of ability, the different stages. Sorry, it can be that most people are playing at amber, but a few are still red level. That doesn't stop them to play together or against each other. They just have slightly different rule on their play. So that's part of changing the task, changing the people, or those kind of things. It's adaptable because the general rules is 2v2, and it's just the type of contact that is changing.
Yeah, there has been examples where one team plays red against a team playing gold, and the gold team have been quite frustrated because they've found it difficult grounding the ball, and the red team have succeeded because then they've played the ball into spaces that the gold team aren't covering. So you, as Bertrand said, you can mix and match, but again, that's down to you using the resource to make sure that everybody is included. And that's the main thing. Festivals. So as it says there, Volley2s is the perfect format for competitions at 4 different levels. One of the things that we started with is that this is way back, we were having competitions where children were being put off because they couldn't actually play a skill. But what was worse was that sometimes it was the coach who was huffing and puffing that the skill was wrong, and that wasn't good. So the idea here is that now we can, as I said earlier, stage competitions at the different levels. And we've said here for children aged 7 to 11, competition should be festival based, with the emphasis on playing lots of short games against lots of different people. And matches are scored because that's quite natural, but results league tables aren't kept. So a festival may be that my team goes along and we play 6 matches. We know that we lost 2 and won 4. That's great. It isn't written anywhere, but I know that. I also know that my other team may have lost 5 and won 1. But again, that's not advertised, but it gives us then something to be working on for next time. But it is very much about the playing of lots of games and the emphasis on short games, so that we don't end up with a massive score to one team and not to the other. It's just quick, short and sharp. And the other big thing is that teachers and coaches work together with all children taking part, not just their own. Logistically, it's impossible, because if I take 5 teams, 10 kids along to a side, that's 5 teams. I cannot be with the 5 teams, but I can be on a court looking at one of my teams and also encouraging someone from who we're playing against, so that we're developing children playing volleyball, not children in my club beating your club. And that way, the children enjoy it more. They're getting input from different people, but we're all on the same page where we're going in terms of what the game's asking, and also the fact that we want them to be enjoying and progressing when they're playing volleyball. So that's the thinking behind the festival approach.
I will answer the question that is in the chat link to that. Yes, the idea is to organize a festival that will be of a certain stage.
What was the question, Bertrand? Sorry.
So the question in the chat is, at festival, is it best to stick to the same game type, e.g. red versus red? So yeah, if you build up your festival, you advertise it as a red, and then people should come to play with those red rules. However, if some players are already slightly more advanced and try to dig the ball, they can dig the ball as long as the other can still play red. If it's a number level, then eventually people who are still just at red level cannot play with those rules, because that's a number festival. Does that make sense the way I answered? Or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that should answer it. And you'd like to think in a festival, children are moving out of red into amber by the end of it anyway. So
that would be the idea.
Yeah.
Oops, yeah. I scrolled again the wrong way. Here we are.
And within the guide itself, there's a festival guide there that gives you about organising a tournament. So hopefully it's right from the beginning, giving you ideas about the equipment, about sending out letters and invitations, what sort of equipment you need to bring along, a little bit about organising the teams when they arrive, and then there's bits about playing order, and there's also the officiating. The big thing about the officiating is that we want the children to do the officiating, not the adults. So in a festival, if one of the teams is out, they automatically become the officials with the scoring and the officiating. If there's no officials because everybody is playing, well, it's self-officiated then, and captains from each of the teams help keep the score. So the role of the teacher and the coach is just to stand alongside the young referee and perhaps just help them along a bit with perhaps some of the signals, and just give them the confidence to be able to referee the game. But again, it's all about supporting everybody within the festival, so that's quite an important bit as well. Anything else? Anything to add, Bertrand, on that?
No. Well, okay. The idea in a festival is that as coaches or teachers, we have worked with our players, with our groups during the week, during few weeks, etc. And then when we go at the festival, it's just having them playing, and then as a group of coaches and teachers there at the festival, we are really there to facilitate everybody enjoyment and the smoothness of the game. So the players have a lot of games, have a lot of opportunity to keep developing themselves in a safe, friendly / competitive environment, and they can go back home willing to come back at the next training session because they had this good time. And I think once we go to the festival, we need forgetting about this is the players who are part of my club or my school. We facilitate for everyone.
Yeah. The final slide is the first one, really. It's just, again, it's about the game is simple. The fact that hopefully you've seen that going from red through to gold gives you that journey from a catch throw to a traditional volleyball or proper volleyball skills, as it says there. And hopefully the guide is easy enough to be able to understand, to be explained. And it says at the top there, just give it a go. And before we go on to questions, there are sort of 5 things around that. The first thing is you've got the resource, so please use it. Please run sessions. Please create festivals, so that we're actually getting volleyball up and running. Spread the word to people within your club, local schools. We have got another one of these webinars coming up in June, which will be advertised. This resource itself, after we've had the formal launch on Thursday, will be on the website itself, so other people will be able to access it then. So let them know about it. But the main thing is thank you for listening in, and just give it a shot. That's the main thing. In about 6 months' time, we will be sending out a little survey to see. It's really just where have you got to, what have you learned from it, what can we learn from what you've learned. So rather than try and have bits of feedback here and there, it'd be great if you sort of gather any ideas, feedback, if there's any case studies, photographs, so that when we come back to you in about 6 months and say, how's it going, what have you learned, what changes do we need to make, we've got that all in one place, and we can then properly review it as such. As I've just said, it's a free resource. It's been a little bit of a battle to make it a free resource, but we've got to have that so people are using it and not having to think about paying to get a resource. That's get the game out and played. The one thing I'd say though is, rather than just pass this on to somebody, can you actually ask them to go onto the Volleyball England site, because we want to capture how many of the resources have been downloaded and really where they're from, because that gives us a plan going forward. If we can see an area where the resource has been downloaded by quite a few within that area, we can then link in with the local club and say, do you realise that there's half a dozen schools owned by you that are using this resource? And they might come back and say, yes, I know, because we told them, which would be great. Or it might be that they didn't know. So it's again trying to plot the way forward on this. So again, by all means, that resource is free, but please download from the website itself. And what was the last thing? Oh yeah, the last point really is, this is just a start. It's taken us a long time to get to the start, and we're still at the development stage of lots of things. This resource we're hoping is a standalone with perhaps support, a little bit of support on the website and also from these webinars, but it should be standalone. But we're looking to develop things with outside agencies. We've done quite a bit of work with Youth Sport Trust, because they're the ones that are in schools. They're the ones that know through their national data how many schools are involved with volleyball. We were part of their, they asked us to review and rewrite their resource that's on their website about playing volleyball, and we've made sure that it fits to Volley2s as opposed to what they had on there before. So we are working, but it's a long road before we get onto the next stage. So it's just about being patient, and we'll get there with all your help and support. Right. I think I'll have a breather there, and okay. Thanks, Bertrand.
There is a few questions. So Natasha has answered the question about hard copy, and you mentioned it as well, Nick. So it's to download the copies from the website. There is another question: is what level of teaching, coaching, qualification would you recommend to lead this at a club? Can you recommend a course? Is the level 1 sufficient? So to a certain extent, you would not need any qualification to be able to use these resources. The way we try to build it up is that each stage is made to what we think is required for the beginners, or for slightly more advanced with Amber, or slightly more advanced with Green, or even more advanced at this kind of age with Gold, with outcomes. So almost to start with low experience. So a teacher, for example, in a primary school who wants to give it a go at volleyball but has never done volleyball, can almost just pick the activities along, saying, okay, today I want them to move. Oh, actually, those activities are designed to help them moving, or I want them to throw the ball with a nice rainbow trajectory, these activities will help. So as a starting point, there's no need to have a high level of knowledge behind it. Needs to have a bit of understanding on how to manage a group of children, but I imagine that teachers in a school will have those knowledge, and someone trying to run a session in a club will also work towards this. And then as a starting point, there should be all the information on the resources. Am I correct with that, Nick?
Yes. I mean, we're looking at trying to put together a sort of tutor pack and a course, if you like. With that in mind, I think we'd be looking really at aiming at coaching companies that go into schools. We're looking at university students on a primary PGCE where volleyball could be an activity, but we're a little bit away from actually getting that in place in terms of accrediting it. So people tend to say, if we're doing a course, we want some accreditation against that. So we're on the ball trying to get that sorted. But Bertrand's dead right. In your club, if you've got some parents, if you've got some older players, young leaders, working with them, with a little bit of support from you, an experienced coach, that can happen. And Bertrand's dead right. In schools, hopefully this will work. We have shown this to 2 or 3 primary teachers who've gone, oh yeah, that's good. I've tried those activities. So clearly it does work with teachers that have got a keenness for PE itself. Anything else?
Hi, it's Andrew Whitefield here from Stemont.
Hello, Andrew.
And Suffolk Volleyball Association. Just to follow on from Lorna's question there, specifically focused about within a club. We've got a lack of volunteers around this area, but occasionally we do have a keen parent that says, oh, what can I do? Presumably most venues aren't going to be happy if you say, we've got someone that's completely unqualified, but they have downloaded this PDF. So presumably some sort of safeguarding, qualification, and a little bit more experience in some way. Maybe not like traditionally you'd say level 2 is what you need to be doing children.
In theory, if you want to use someone who's lightly qualified level 1 or a parent who's keen to help, you would require in a club to have them under the supervision of a level 2 coach. But that means maybe the level 2 coach is working with some more advanced player just on the next badminton court.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be literally just and popping next. So it should be manageable in most clubs, especially as Nick said, it can be some older player who can come a bit earlier before their own training session or something that to help around.
Yeah,
does that answer that, Andrew?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Lorna, I don't know if that is enough of an answer for you.
Carol,
sorry, I'm trying to find my unmute. Thank you. No, that is helpful. I think we equally have a lack of fully qualified coaches in our club. So kind of level 1 is about what we've got at the moment. So, but yeah, that is very helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean, in our club, we do exactly what Bertrand mentioned. We've got a group of 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and then we've got older ones that are more advanced. So me as the if you like the more senior coach, I've got a group, and next to them there's another young lady who runs the smaller group. So it's and then discussion across, and it seems to work really well.
Yeah. Carol, for the ball, this is we tend to recommend light balls. So there is those Mikasa, Molten, or things light volleyball. I can't remember how they are called, MG160 or something like that for the Mikasa one. But volley light, this kind of light ball. We need to bear in mind this is for children it's designed for children 7 to 11 years old. So obviously they won't have a lot of strength in their fingers, in their wrist, even in their arm. So a light ball is good. If it's too light, like a balloon, it might slow down everything. So it might be appropriate for some groups, not for some others. So obviously, usually the Mikasa, I think, not that I'm interested by Mikasa specifically, but I worked with them before. Mikasa, I think it's called MG, and then you have different type of weight. I think it starts at 160 and it go to 230, something like that in terms of numbers. 160 being the lighter one, and 200, I think maybe it go to 260 actually. But well, so those type of light balls, yes.
If you on page 21 in the resource, it does give you some information about the ball, and I think it's an SK5, I think it is, or Mikasa, which is really SK V5 kids volleyball, and that, I think that's the older version. There's a newer version now, but I know Sportset are the people that will be able to give advice on that. But that is a really good ball to start young children off, and I'd say anywhere between the age of 7 and 11, that's the ball that we need to be looking at and using if we can. The one thing that I would say is that if you're talking to teachers who want to introduce this in schools, quite a lot of the activities, particularly with red, are around rolling a ball, catching a ball, ball flight, and in their games cupboard they've got a whole load of plastic light balls which will be perfectly adequate to get them going at red level. And so the contact bit, which will be the volley bit, and then particularly the dig, that's a little bit down the line. So there are resources that the schools have already got without having to go spending hundreds of pounds trying to buy them in the first place.
The choice of ball will be important, and there's also some balls who have a nice texture for the children, and that aren't hard. So when they catch it, if they start to try to volley it or to dig it, they have a soft material. They have things like that maybe a few of us started with very hard white volleyballs that were could have been built a house with it. It was hard as a brick, which is also an advice for the teachers. A lot of time, because they don't know, they tend to blow up the balls like a football or a basketball to make it bounce. Obviously in volleyball we want them lighter, so that's also the inflation of the ball can be important for the pleasure or enjoyment of the players.
Yeah.
Gala 170 grams, yeah, that might be absolutely fine. That's exactly the same kind as what I remembered as a Mikasa, but Nick gave another name. But yeah, the Gala ball as well are very good. And 170 grams, it's half the weight of a can of Coke. So usually a 7 to 11 years old should be able to manipulate it.
Don't use a can of Coke though, because that's
it
hurts your arms when you dig it.
So. Sorry, yeah, maybe I was a bit confusing there.
Any other questions? In our area at the moment, there's very few, sorry, it's Andrew Whitefield again. There's very few primary schools currently playing, and so there are a few secondary schools that do play volleyball, and so they generally start from scratch at the moment. Whilst I'm keen to get this into primary schools, do you think it makes sense to encourage secondary schools to start with this rather than start with 3v3 mini volley?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I would say yes, and especially in secondary schools, they tend at the start of the year to group the children in different level of abilities in P. So there is a top group, there is the low ability group. So maybe red will be appropriate for the low ability group to start, and maybe the more advanced ability group in the school will start with green straight on. So that can also help at I'm talking there mainly maybe year 7, maybe year 8. That's not a problem at all.
I think it's actually the PE teachers themselves understanding what the game is, because I think traditionally it would be serve it and that goes in the net, serve it goes out the back, serve it hits one of their teammates. and then you haven't got a game, whereas this actually gets a game going straight from the start. So it's starting from nothing and building up. And I think some of the secondary teachers looking at this as an approach would find it really, really good. And right at the beginning, it's stage, not age. But I would imagine going from a catch throw, the children are going to move on really, really quickly through the different levels. But certainly, I know teaching in secondary, I did the same. Start with the catch throw and then move it through the different stages. So definitely, yes, it's something that can be used within the secondary school.
Thanks. I've got one more question, and that's: is there a chance that you can make, say, a 2-minute video that will show a quick bit of red, a quick bit of amber, a quick bit of green, and a quick bit of gold, so that I can put that in front of PE teachers and local sports coaching companies and show, look, you could be doing this?
Yes, that's our cunning plan. Boris, though, scuppered a bit of this with his COVID outbreak. So yes, this was one of the things we wanted to look at. So yes, that will be one of the things we're looking at in future. And that will be the first little bit of video to go, this is the red, this is green, this is gold, etc. But yes, that would make a big difference, and it's certainly in our plans. But we've been held up for a bit, haven't we all?
Yeah, Debbie, I think you had your hands up, so I guess you have a question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hi, Nick, Bertrand. It's Bob here.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. I saw
I
so it was Debbie.
Yeah, no, I'm here too.
Oh, good.
I joined in a little bit late. I just walked in, and I hope I'm not asking a question that may have already been asked, but I know you guys are doing a fantastic job of getting some direction in youth volleyball events and everything. I was just wondering if you had any feedback. Are there any regions, clubs, groups that are starting to respond by declaring that they're going to have an event, a tournament, a competition of any sort? Is this starting to gain some momentum and people are actually organizing things?
I would say that I haven't heard nationally on that one. I think people are beginning to get back into action. I think that's been restricted a little bit. I know if your club is based in a school, some of the schools are quite happy that your club can start training again. Other schools, they're waiting and seeing a little bit. So, but I know within our area, we're looking at the possibility of getting something done outside with limited numbers. But I think people are really, really wanting to get things done, but are just a little bit, they're gentle steps at the moment, I think would be the answer.
Sure.
I don't think that sort of answer, but certainly there's an appetite for it.
Do you think that as we begin to get some announcements, will there be a way to pick up on these on the Volleyball England website when an announcement for a youth competition is made, so that it takes a little bit of time to get parental permission and do all the things you need to do to get a group of kids up to an event? Will there be a sufficient time in the announcements, and will there be announcements on the Volleyball England website letting us all know when something does get organized?
I think there's two separate bits here, and in the competitions for the older young people, the under 15s, etc.
Yeah,
that's sort of in the planning and bits of announcement. And again, it's wait and see, but that definitely be announced. What we're looking at with this Volley2s, which is obviously primary, is that things are very, very localized.
sure.
So we're looking at my club, for example, being able to say to 2 or 3 primary schools around, do you fancy a bit of volleyball? Bring 2 or 3 kids, not 3, bring 4 kids or 6 kids, and we'll try and get something together. But again, I know from my experience, it's been a difficult step. We've only just started coaching. We've had 3 sessions now. We're starting to coach, but the previous sessions have all been about the protocols and procedures. And again, by inviting other people in, that's adding another layer to it. So, but yes, that's what we're looking for with this, is that we can get lots of little events going on the Volley2s, and certainly the older ones, that will be looked at as well. But that's a little bit of a different,
Sure.
different issue as such.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Carol had her hands up as well.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, hello,
Yes,
Carol.
Just a quick one. I know that Gary is trying to do some things, but mainly with the secondary school participants at the moment. And I think we're at a difficult juncture because obviously the schools are, winding down for their summer. So it might be that we look to develop this outdoors on grass if the clubs are up for it. But certainly in terms of the momentum, I think Gary's concerned that we've got quite a lot of juniors wanting to get involved, but it is about getting the coaches. And if we can get this, if like promoted.
I'm not sure if it's just me, Carol, but I lost the sound.
Yeah. I lost the sound.
Maybe even at the next round of level 1. So we inform the coaches there and say, look, have you got anybody, and give them a little bit of a brief introduction.
So Carol, we lost we lost the sound, unfortunately, throughout your question. So I'm not sure we'll be able to answer.
I think.
Don't worry, I'm going to try and put it in the chat because it keeps bouncing in and out, and I've even got my camera turned off. So I'll put it in the chat. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things in terms of getting into the school, so I don't know, I think most people who are on the call at the moment are in clubs. If you have some junior players already in your club, if they are not at primary school age, they may have a young brother or young sister that might think they are too young to start volleyball, and maybe can ask them, and then ask which school they are in, get in touch with their teacher to say, well, here it is, try that for 4 weeks, and then we host you outdoor, come with 6 players on a Saturday afternoon. You have 3 schools coming, that's 18 players, and you can have a quick festival. Because, yeah, it's very likely if you have some juniors in your club that some of them have some young brother or sister still in primary school around your area. And that's most of the time an easy way to get in touch with the teachers.
Yeah. I think being as we traditionally we haven't had primary children, a lot of children playing at volleyball within clubs. I just hope that this will give people the confidence to give it a go, to involve parents and young leaders as part of their club and giving back to the club and encouraging the young ones to play. So that's the plan, and hopefully you're in a position to do that, which would be great. Have we had Carol's question through, Bertrand?
No, I can't see it yet, but I'm sure it will come.
Has anyone else got any points? Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah. Hello, Dave.
Hi. I just really want to say a big thank you and congratulations on introducing this. It's actually something we've been doing for probably a year and a bit now, not in the organized way you've done it, and that's really going to be helpful to us, but we've been introducing this type of game, the catch and throw game, to our primary school and at the beginning of secondary school to get them straight into a game situation. And I can say it absolutely really works. No problem.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks for that. But that's really good to hear that that's working. And I think the thing is, with this resource, it's there as a real guide for people that perhaps aren't too sure about the game, but hopefully those that are, they can take it and adapt it to their particular circumstances. But that's great to hear that it is working. So thanks for that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So we finally get something from Carol on written. So if we promote this early to schools for September, you have some great content, great activity to do, even icebreaker welcome session for new starters. Thank you, Carol. We hope so. Yeah, I think advertising it for September. One of the things at this time of the year is effectively it might be too difficult to organize something now, especially with the current regulation. But talking to the schools who are able to organize that, do you want to be involved? As a club, we lost something first week of October. As a school, here are some resources. Work a bit through it and come to our festivals. That's absolutely a time to do this.
Yeah. So it's as Volleyball England, it's your resource, and it's a hopefully sort of waving it under the nose of teachers at school. They'll be thinking, this is fantastic. We've got something we can hopefully work towards.
Yeah. So part of the question as well from Carol was, could we use some of the fabulous content for the level 1 coaching courses to encourage them to go back and start younger cohort 2? I think that's a good point, Carol, because the activities are also based to what we put in the level 1. So ready for action, right place, right time, ball control, finish, link, reset. We can effectively certainly introduce some of those activity, or at least the concept of it, into the level 1 for effectively them to feel confident to eventually go to work with younger kids than they tend to.
Yeah. And we're also looking at trying to put a sort of 3-hour twilight session around Volley2s. But again, it's in the pipeline, but hopefully that will come. And we're aiming it at 3 hours because that's an attractive period of time for teachers as well as people involved in clubs. Just as one session in the evening, just to go through the basics. So yes, hopefully that's what we're after.
And I am sure that everybody on this call is kind of convinced of it, but also trying to get some primary school children in your club and a group of primary school children. It's a very good way as well for your club to recruit volunteers, because at this age, parents are very supportive. They will be there. And if their children enjoy it, they are really likely to step in and help the club where they are 14, 15 years old, the kids try to keep their parents away, and it's a bit more difficult to get them there.
Yeah. And I think from a club's point of view, by running a little session with these 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, they pay their £5, £2, £5, whatever it is per session to cover the cost of the hall. It actually isn't a financial drain on the club, and in fact, it can be quite the opposite. It can actually be put into the coffers to support the older young players as well. So, whatever happens, don't let finance be the barrier.
All right. Do you have any other question linked to Volley2's content or guide? I think the word guide is very important here, in the sense that you don't have to follow exactly what is on it. If you're not experienced, that's a good starting point. If you're more experienced, it can just be some idea to tip in and say, oh yeah, actually, I never tried this activity. Oh yes, that helps me to solve this. So that's it can be used again for different level of coaches as well, not just for the players.
Nothing more from me. Thank you very much, guys. It looked really helpful.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for giving your time this evening, and hopefully we can all get Volley2s up and running and spread the word. And also thanks, Natasha, for hosting us this evening. And there's a lot of people back at the Volleyball England hub who've put a lot of work into this. I know Stuart has in getting things sorted. Of course, Gillian alongside Bertrand. So thanks to everyone for that.